cops. Perfect. Call them. But don't be shocked if the person getting handcuffed isn't me. That's what I said the moment Margaret Thornfield, our local self-appointed suburban sheriff, started screaming at 911 about the danger of the smart lock I'd just installed on my backyard pool gate. She looked convinced she'd caught me in some HOA violation of the century, and for about 3 minutes I wondered if maybe I'd underestimated the chaos potential of a bored neighbor with too much time and a leather-bound handbook. When the cops rolled up and I calmly opened my Karen footage folder, it felt like time stopped. Margaret's face drained as the police watched video after video of her letting herself in sometimes with a parade of friends to throw parties in my backyard, acting like she owned the place. But the best part, the deed stamped and notarized confirming the fence and pool were 100% mine. That's when you know you've played the long game, right? No yelling, no arguing, just facts laid out while she signed her citation with hands shaking hard enough to make a leaf blower jealous. But you know what? That was just the finale of a story that started months earlier when I inherited my grandmother's house in Maple Grove. You'd think the biggest drama would be deciding whether to sell or settle down. Instead, I stumbled straight into a neighborhood drama worthy of cable TV. I'm Ethan Blackwater, 34, remote software engineer. The place came loaded with memories and a backyard pool that had seen better days, plus a fence that was one strong wind away from joining the neighbor's yard. Security. Yeah, that's my thing. After 3 break-ins in the area, upgrading to a smart lock made sense, especially since the property line gave me a solid 10 feet beyond that old fence. It was all legally mine. I didn't expect anyone to care honestly. But in suburbs like Maple Grove, folks find new ways to care about anything. And that's how I met Margaret, a 50-something with perfect posture, always looking like she's headed to a board meeting, and an HOA manual thick enough to flatten a small dog. She appeared as I tightened the last screw, barking, "Excuse me," with the urgency of a tornado warning. She glared at my lock like I'd installed a laser turret, then announced, "You absolutely cannot install that without HOA approval. I'm the president, and this is a violation of community standards." I tried to stay polite. Grandma Rose always said, "Kill him with kindness, and if that fails, documentation." So I offered to show her the paperwork proving the pool area was private property. She waved me off and whipped out her secret weapon. The HOA Handbook, 2024, flipping through its pages like she was prepping for a legal duel on primetime TV. She found her smoking gun some clause about exterior modifications needing HOA review, including security devices. For a second, I felt a sliver of doubt. Was I the one in the wrong? But then I remembered Grandma's words in that old photo of us by the pool, her arms around me reminding me not to let anyone make me doubt what's right. "I appreciate your concern, Margaret, but I've checked the boundaries and this is my private property. The lock is just for security." Margaret's face was a traffic light, going from normal to pink to deep red. She huffed, "This isn't over. I'm calling the police." And just like that, I was front row for World War Karen the Suburban Edition. She called 911 so dramatically you'd think I'd set the neighborhood on fire warning dispatch, that I was violating our HOA lawn maintenance schedule. I almost laughed out loud. The dispatcher was all, "Is anyone actually in danger?" And Margaret, dead serious, said, "He's bleeding our community standards dry." That's when I started recording, because who'd believe this otherwise? After a while, I started questioning myself again. Was there some tiny rule I'd missed? Margaret was good at this, turning rational folks into doubters. But looking at the stack of documents from my lawyer, I knew I was good. 15 feet inside the boundary line, private pool, private fence, private lock. No HOA business here. When Officer Diego Santos arrived, a middle-aged guy who looked like he'd seen it all, I could see he already had the patience of a saint. Margaret greeted him with a whole speech, waving her handbook, claiming my lock was a threat to neighborhood harmony. Santos listened, nodded, then asked for documentation from both sides. Margaret beamed. I grinned. "Officer, everything's in my basement. Now, Grandma Rose had turned the basement into mission control, 12 cameras, hard drives, and enough gear to make the NSA jealous. When Santos and Margaret saw the security wall, their jaws nearly hit the floor. "How long's this been running?" he asked. 3 months, I replied, showing off not just my property deed, but the video folder labeled Margaret Activity. And this is where things went off the rails for Margaret. The footage showed her unlocking my old gate, leading guests into the pool area, barbecues, yoga classes, book clubs, even birthday parties with bounce houses. And yes, she was collecting cash at the gate. Santos watched in silence, eyebrows rising higher with each click. Margaret sputtered something about community events and neighborhood spirit, but the survey map proved the area was all mine. Just to be sure, Santos radioed the county clerk for confirmation. The reply was clear: my property, my fence, my pool, all private. Margaret tried to pivot, but we've always used this space. Your grandmother never minded. I remembered Grandma Rose warning me about boundaries, literally and figuratively. Santos asked, "Did your grandmother ever mention an arrangement?" "No, officer. She installed this system to keep things private." That's when our secret weapon arrived, Mrs. Chen, my 78-year-old neighbor and Grandma's best friend. She had watched the whole show and confirmed Margaret had lied about having my permission for these community events. Then Mrs. Chen dropped the final bomb. Margaret was charging people $15 a head, running a cash business on my property without ever mentioning a word to me. The video showed it all: her little cash box, the guests, the DJ, the grill outs. Then the twist nobody saw coming. Santos called HOA headquarters to verify Margaret's status. Turns out she hadn't been HOA president for 6 months. She'd lost her re-election in a landslide and just kept pretending. That's right, Margaret had been running unauthorized parties, collecting money, and trespassing on property she had no authority over. Santos read her the Miranda rights right there in my kitchen while she clung to that handbook like a child's blanket, her entire fake empire collapsing. Margaret begged, tried to blame everyone but herself. But the evidence was too overwhelming. I could have pressed charges, 47 counts of trespassing, fraud, misrepresentation, unauthorized business operations, even potential tax evasion. It was all there. Here's where it gets real. With Santos waiting for my decision, Margaret broke down, finally dropping the act. She told me her life had fallen apart. Her husband left, her daughter didn't want to visit, and she threw herself into HOA stuff, trying to feel needed again. She admitted she lost track of the line between helping and controlling. Mrs. Chen, ever the wise elder, told her, "You don't build community by taking what isn't yours. You build it by giving what you have." I had 60 seconds to choose: seek revenge or show mercy. I let her off the hook. No criminal charges, but with strict conditions. She paid me back for the utilities refunded, every penny collected, wrote an apology letter to the entire neighborhood, and got professional help. Santos nodded, reminding us the IRS and HOA could still do their own investigations, but I'd done my part. 2 weeks later, a FedEx envelope showed up. Margaret had sent a check covering every cent she owed, plus a handwritten apology, and a photo of her with her daughter Sophia, both smiling in a therapist's office. Her letter explained everything. She was finally getting help, and her daughter had come back into her life, all because someone showed her mercy instead of burning her world down. And the final twist, Margaret revealed something Mrs. Chen had hinted at Grandma Rose, had always known about the informal pool parties but never made a fuss, hoping the next owner would know how to balance protecting their space and sharing with the community. She'd installed the cameras for safety, not suspicion. Margaret confessed, "I twisted that spirit into something selfish, but you showed me what real leadership looks like." That hit me right in the gut. Now, the pool is still locked, but 3 neighbors have access codes for emergencies or special occasions. No money, no secret parties, just neighborly respect. Margaret uses it once a month with Sophia, always asks first and always leaves things better than she found them. Sometimes I catch her picking up leaves from the filter on the cameras, a little gesture that says a lot. I'll never forget what Grandma said: mercy is strength. The neighborhood is quieter now, no more backyard ragers, just real conversations. Margaret still walks her dog past my house, and we wave like normal folks do. The smart lock does its job, but it's the human connections that keep the peace. So let me ask, have you ever been on either end of a second chance? Did mercy ever change your story or someone else's? Drop your take in the comments below. Sometimes the right kind of forgiveness can change a whole community.